kind of new at this, sport speaking, so bear with me on it. You'll see Ratchford. I started Ratchford Buffalo Farms about 17, 18 years ago. I guess what I'm trying to say is I started thinking outside the box. I had been raised on a farm, raising cattle and feeder pigs for all my life. If I can figure out how this thing works. A few years ago, when I started getting in the buffalo business, I didn't want to do very many tours. The agritourism industry was just young. And then I think it was about 4 years ago, the state legislators passed some new laws limiting our liability. So at that point, I'm going to say was really the birth of the agritourism industry, which I'm in on some. I do give a few tours, but that really started it for some of the other ranches and farms in the state. So you also notice I've got this. It appears on both my gates. I've got the big remote control gates as well as the Beware of Dogs sign, which limits my liability. And also to supplement the income on the farm, I've went with some cabin rentals that overlook my buffalo farm. Yes, sir. A lot of this is just thinking outside the box. It's not norm with the cattle. It's not norm with some of the other things. I was a welder for a number of years, and then I decided I wanted to get into buffalo, and that's one of the reasons I was able to get into the buffalo, the American bison. That's the heart of my operation now. We've got the snack sticks, the jerky. I've got roughly 400 places in parts of Arkansas, Missouri, and some in Oklahoma. And of course, the mail order, the snack sticks and jerky, we send it all over the United States and some of the military bases all over the world. That's one example of one of my projects. I was able to build a barn, which I'd always wanted to store my hay in. Of course, I'm sure that these other guys, Scotty, and them can even talk about the total digestive nutrients, about how that hay stored inside versus outside, but I won't bore you with that. From my operation, dealing with direct sales to the customer and I think we've had 11 TV programs on. We've had National Geographic, America's Heartland, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. They recently filmed a video. You can YouTube that. This goes back to, I remember back whenever I was little, my dad actually using a rake like this to rake up hay, pulling it with mules. You know, agriculture has really changed a lot. I'm sure I'm not telling you all anything the last so many years. I look back at some of you older gentlemen out here. I'm sure that you all have saw agriculture go from the horses and the mules to the big four-wheel drive cab tractors. And one of the reasons that I'm able to get into the buffalo business was, you know, as a welder, I put up miles of steel fences, steel corrals for the buffalo, because they are, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the actual bull buffaloes and besides the calves that you may see in a rodeo or someplace, but these are big animals. And another thing, like with agritourism, that's not really a very good picture, but as you can see, like right there, that's raspberries. I even, practice the edible landscapes. That's the raspberries up through here. And then, we've all got trees in our yards. I like to have edible trees. There's some plum trees, some pear trees. That's some others around the yard. These pictures were taken before any foliage came on a few weeks ago. And we've also, right there, a llama. He was rescued, and you can see that she was feeding him. We got some other stuff like that people seem to really enjoy seeing. We've had people at my farm from all the states in the union, plus we've had them there from we've had Canada, Lithuania, Australia, Japan. They seem to be very interested in the American bison. And let's see, there's some other, even there's a emu that we rescued. Done some rescues on some other animals like that. And with the buffalo, I have, through my welding, we don't use any wooden post. Everything's steel. Right there's an 8-foot cattle guard right there. The buffalo stand flat-footed and clear that. So when we got cattle in there, we have to use gates over anything like that. You can see another thing that is for the feral hogs, the wild hog population. I don't know if they started in over here. Y'all having very many of them over here? The wild hogs are pretty bad. Some more pictures of the steel fences. Got some 8-foot corrals. You can see right there is the big bull buffalo. He'll probably weigh close to 2,500 pounds, but all my posts are set in concrete. That's about 2 foot deep in concrete, all the posts, and that's oil field pipe and sucker rod primarily over that. Something else I do a little bit different than some of the others, some of the other practices that they'd talked about. I use a salt mix during the winter. So it's got some grain, limited with salt, and I'll put Bermuda grass seed in there, and I'll also put clover. As you know, the clover's a legume. It puts nitrogen back into the soil. So another picture of my 8-foot corrals. I guess that's it for the pictures. Now that I'm gonna take all the questions. Anybody that wants to ask anything about the business.
Excuse me, you said you're in 2 other states, Oklahoma and...
We deliver. Actually, I'm sorry, our products are, we deliver. We've got slightly less than 500 acres. Yes, ma'am. It's not all fenced for the buffalo yet because they require totally different fencing.
And you're also selling them, like you can buy the ground buffalo meat in the grocery stores locally.
Yes, we've got Nature's Way over here. They handle our naturally raised, our buffalo. We also have naturally raised beef. It can be found in health food stores throughout Arkansas and even into Branson, Missouri and places like that, Springfield.
Who processes
The live animals, we were taking them to Cypress Valley Meats down in Equipment, Romance, Arkansas, but the plant recently burned. So there's another one of their plants that we started taking it to. It's between Russellville and Dardanelle. Then the meat is taken from there under USDA inspection to just outside of it's Lockwood, Missouri, where there's a plant up there that makes my snack sticks and jerky.
Did you say how many you had about?
It varies anywhere close to about 50 head of buffalo, but it will vary 40 to 50, sometimes a few more. Yes, sir.
I just want to tell everybody that we tried his New York strip, and it was incredible. It was, and I'm not much of a steak eater, but it was absolutely incredible. And it was really good. And your jerky was excellent too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the conservation practices that you're putting on your farm?
Well, it's like we use diatomaceous earth a lot. We try to stay away from the chemicals, the different sprays. They've definitely got their place. I'm not saying that they don't, but we try to use as many natural things as we possibly can. One thing we've got, Scotty's been out there. We've got 11 free-flowing springs on the farm, and they've helped us develop some of those, and we've got several tanks that the spring water run into. We try not to use the ponds any more than we have to. That's trying to be being proactive versus reactive in the animal health. I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot of stuff, but is anybody else? Yes, sir.
Speaking of animal health, how often do you have to work buffalo as much as you do domestic cattle?
Well, you should work them more, but there's just a fine line when you work buffalo. They're not like cattle. They're not domesticated. We've had them to kill each other when we were working them. You work buffalo one at a time. If I'm saying that, I'm sure all of y'all have worked cattle. You've got this big chute, you run them up, and you just fill it full of cattle or whatever. You don't do that buffalo. My my alleyway is made out of highway guardrail and I-beam. It's almost 8 foot tall. It's got a catwalk on it. So whenever you run them in one at a time, and you have a drop gate between them. Yeah, I've learned a lot since I started. I had almost a pet buffalo, and she had a calf. She'd eat out of your hand. Of course, whenever you start taking them down into the smaller places before you run them into your alleyway, I had her and her calf. She got scared, turned on her calf, and tried to kill it. And she was one that ate out of your hand. It's just like whenever you're hauling buffalo. You don't haul them a load of live buffalo. You just don't run your trailer full. You haul them one to the compartment, or they'll kill each other. I recently moved some from one pen to the other last week. Some 500, 600 pound calves. Moved them in another field, just literally across the road to some other buffalo. First thing they did was to kill one of the calves. The other buffalo did. Took them about 5 minutes. Nothing I could do. You just stand there. You throw some rocks at them, and they shake their head, and they go right back to killing it. They're not cattle.
How dangerous are they when do you walk out in the field with them?
No. No. No, there's more people. There's a lot more people hurt and killed by buffalo than there are cattle. A lot more people. They're a wild animal. And that's something people forget. They'll see these big shaggy things at Yellowstone National Park, and they'll say, "Oh, I saw them and I took some pictures with them." That's not the way it is. I knew a guy out in the edge of Oklahoma a while back. I got a call asking if I wanted to sell some products to people out there, and I was like, "Well, this older guy, he's been furnishing your stores. I'd rather not." And then they said, "Well, haven't you heard?" Of course, you know what that means. And he got careless, and he didn't die that day, but a few days later, apparently he died from a heart attack. He got hit. But they move so fast. They're not like cattle. When they attack as a group. One of them don't attack, everything attacks. It's just like, with dogs. I'm sure all of you all have had problems with dogs getting in a herd of cattle. And here you've got a cow and a calf, and the calf will start bawling, the cow, and then they'll get it off to the side, and everything else will run off. That's not the way with buffalo. If they ever break herd, the rest of the herd comes right back. And they'll kill a dog, they'll kill whatever. The only real natural predators that they have are humans. They'll kill a horse, whatever. No, they're not. They don't even play, like I said, they don't play well together. They'll kill each other. I've had numerous times that they'd kill each other, especially if you give them a small place. Yes, sir.
How and where do you buy them?
Well, I had some other operations, other smaller places that would sell me their excess buffalo, because there's some sales with buffalo, but it's not like you're going to go out here to your sale once a month or once a week. So I'd been buying from other people, but at this point, some other ranchers, but they're almost impossible to get right now.
You have to go pick them up one at a time?
Well, I haul 3 at a time in a trailer. Yeah, I've got a compartment. My trailer's got 3. 3 to the compartment.
How do you get them up? Feed sack?
Oh yeah, you'll get on the back of a truck. It's just like whenever we go feed them in the morning. I get on the back of a truck, my brother drives it, and I put out the range cubes. They're pretty easy to get conditioned like that. And then I'll start feeding them in my corral whenever I need to get them up. But getting back to your question, they are more prone to parasites than cattle. They should be worked more. But I do use some Ivomec occasionally, pour on. What I like to do, or prefer to do, is to have the range cubes and put diatomaceous earth on them and let them eat that. That seems to help pretty good. And Vitaferm heat seems to work pretty good for flies. But then for fly control, I find where they're wallowing, which they do wallow, I put diatomaceous earth in that. That helps. But they still need some sort of a pour on for the flies.
Do they like range cubes as well as a domestic cow?
Yes, if not more so. But they are picky on what they eat. They don't, that salt mix like I'm talking about, they won't eat it. A heavy molasses feed, like what we call all grain, which I buy, they won't eat that. They'll eat the 50-50, but they won't eat that. There's just certain feeds that Bermuda grass hay, they won't eat that unless they absolutely have to.
Will they eat pellets?
Yes.
Did you ever try feeding them Sericea pellets?
Haven't yet. That's something I never really thought about. Pardon, sir?
for parasites?
I know I just sericea pellets. I'm not familiar with that. I would like to get with you after this. I always willing to learn. I always want to know. So, anybody else?
What age or what size do you try to get them before you process?
At about 3 years old, of course, they take a lot longer than cattle to mature. At 3 years old, I like to have them anywhere from 1150, 1250, 1300, somewhere in there if I can at all. Sometimes I have to butcher earlier, but it's just hard for me to keep up with the supply of supply and demand.
Is the gestation period like a cow?
Yes, it is, but they calve primarily. They calve whenever the days are long. That goes back to the wild instinct, where they breed, and that's when they calve. They primarily calve about June. You'll have one out of sync and they'll calve in the winter, but primarily in June. That's whenever the days are long, going back to, they evolved through millions of years. They have birth weight of a calf's 30 to 35 pounds. They have their babies standing up. The baby's ready to up and at it and ready for the herd to follow the herd in just a matter of hours. When they calve, you'll drive out there, of course, like anybody, you'll want to go see, well, here's a baby buffalo. Most of the time they'll put the baby in the center and they circle. There's no way in. If you were a predator, I don't care if it's a dog or a bear or a human, there's no way in. Till they want you to. Yes, sir. Roughly 9 months, just like a cow. Yes, sir.
I didn't completely hear what you said earlier. Is your herd now self-sustaining as far as birthing enough, or do you have to stuff purchase from elsewhere?
If any time I get the opportunity, I want to bring more animals in because I don't want to butcher the heifers. I try to use them for replacements. I want to grow the herd. But when I can find them at a reasonable price, which anymore they're hard to find at any price. Yeah, you have. I'm aware out west they do have the big sales, but just the transport, and it's just not only the transport, but getting them back alive. I've known different people that go out there and buy them, and they don't. I don't know how to really put this. To them it was just an economic thing to make a few bucks, and get back, and somebody in a trailer would be dead. To me, I just can't really. I don't do that. Anybody else? Well, yes, ma'am.
To get that deer disease?
Pardon, sir?
Are they very likely to get that deer disease?
No, they're a large herbivore. They're not. They're under. To even answer, to go a step further than that, no, they don't have. They're not a cervid. They won't. They won't get it. Won't contract it like the deer, or the elk, or something like that. That's one of the reasons they won't let me get permits to raise elk in the state of Arkansas. They have them down the Buffalo River, but I can't have them. Kind of a sore spot. But yes, ma'am.
I just want to know, do you cut your own hay or do you buy?
No, I never have saw it economically feasible to harvest it myself. I buy it. That's one of the reasons for the big barn. I showed you right back over there. I'm able to put it all in the dry. I don't use as much hay as probably a lot of people. Probably don't go through over 400 round bales a year. I just don't have that many animals.
What about brucellosis?
I guess that they could have it. I'm sure we don't have to test, or we don't vaccinate for it. But they are currently they were switched from the Game and Fish Commission. They're under the Livestock and Agricultural Commission. So we're on the same rules basically as the cattle operations now versus the Game and Fish Commission whenever they had it. Yes, ma'am.
I see that you also sell raw honey. So do you have hives on?
Well, since then we've had a problem. Since that was our brochures were made, We've had total colony collapse. We've lost every bee. I only had like 17 hives, but they were thriving and we lost them. Of course, there's a lot of theories to that, and I'm not going to say for any one theory. Some people say that the spraying has something to do with it. There's a lot of theories, and I don't really know what happened. I just know that it was a major jar to me economically whenever you're set up and you lose that many. And, I had the markets since I was already in the health food stores and going to these places. I had the markets, and then I lost the bees. That hurts.
Another question I have, you also have handmade artesian silk.
Well, I had a lady. Yes, she's been doing that using the buffalo tallow. I've partnered with another lady. She's using the buffalo tallow for that. And buffalo, they're the only mammal that's never been known to have cancer. They do not have cancer. You never see one with a cancer eye or something like that. And we've actually got a couple of doctors. Well, one in Hawaii that was coming out buying our meat. He was treating cancer. He was treating his patients with cancer with buffalo meat. I'm not going to have any claim or disclaimer on that. I'm just going to say I've had more than one doctor